Screenagers, it is 2025 and we're back. Season 5 of the Canon is almost upon us. But before we get to that, we want to have some fun before we get into all the serious movie talk that will be season 5 of the Canon. We're going to have a little bit of fun today. We're going to be nominating some movies from 2024 that we think might be canon worthy. Joining me today to talk about said nominations, we've got a few canon favorites returning, and we've got a longtime Saw contributor, but first time canon guest also joining us. So today on the show for these nominations, we've got Jacob, we've got Sailor, and for the first time on the canon, we've got Kane. Gentlemen, welcome. How is everyone doing?
Doing
Howdy,
good.
howdy.
Hell
Everybody
yeah.
jumping in at the same time. Howdy.
We're still working on our timing. This is our first iteration of this group, so we'll figure it out. It'll come to us along the way. Um, Before we jump in to our nominations and everything like that, I just want to say, just in case there are any canon purists out there who are concerned about the actual process for nominating and voting on movies into the canon, this is all for fun. This is unofficial. So, Duke, don't yell at us. We're not saying that these are the actual movies that are going to be in the canon for 2024. It's just a fun exercise that we're going to go through here where we can do a little bit of debate, a little bit of chatter. We don't get to do a lot of, debate on this show. So, I feel like that will be fun where we present movies, we present arguments on behalf of those movies and why they should be in the canon. And then we'll take it from there. So, how's this going to go? Like I just said, um, each of the four of us will nominate one movie. We also all have at least one or two backups in case our first movie gets nominated by someone else. Uh, Whoever is nominated in a movie will present a quick argument or defense of that movie. The rest of us will chat about it, say whether or not that is a good choice for a movie to nominate into the canon, and then we'll move on to the next person. In order to determine the order of how we're going to nominate movies, we are going to the very official randomwheel.com, or I guess it's actually called wheelofnames.com. So we've got all four of our names in. We'll spin the wheel and we'll see who's going to go first. Before we start spinning this wheel, anything that you guys want to say before we jump off into these nominations, or should we just go for it?
I'm good. Just go for it.
Yeah,
Let's
jump
get
in.
it.
All right. Without further ado, I don't know if you guys can hear it, but it's making a cute little noise. Oh, Jacob, you're first up. What is your nomination?
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go ahead and take The Substance off the board.
Oh,
Ooh,
I mean, it's the movie that we've all been talking about at ScreenAge Wasteland for the better part of the year. And when I looked back and I scrolled through the Canon movies, which by the way, it's not really that easy to do right now. I think we need to kind of fix that on the site. But when I look back through the Canon movies, so many of them are like visionary works from a director, like kind of single minded, like, and a lot of them, obviously we have several movies under certain directors that are just, legends, but, um, I feel like some of the other options this year, there's several options this year, but Corley I think it's Farjay. Um, I don't think
sounds
most of
French.
us really knew who that was before this year, probably. But I mean, the substance, she just, I mean, it's so singular. Like when you're watching it, you feel like this is somebody with it, even when you don't agree. I know, there's a lot of controversy kind of about the last 15 minutes. A lot of people kind of vibed with the movie up until the last 15 minutes. And some, it goes different ways. But I feel like it was still part of this artistic vision and just someone that just going all out. You know, there was no. I mean, there's stories about how she denied certain studio notes and was like, nah, we'll just find another way to market it from Universal, and just I mean that's her movie doing what she wants, and it's a great movie. I mean, it's fun. It's got some message to it. It's not like a revolutionary message. It's one that we've talked about in a lot of movies, but it's told in a revolutionary way. So yeah, I'd like to hear the debate on this. I think it's a pretty well loved movie, so it'll be interesting to see.
No, there's no debate here. That was going to be my first pick. If I got first pick, I think it's right there. Exactly what kind of you're talking about. To me, is a prototypical canon entry in my opinion. And I think y'all did an episode or something about like the beginning of the canon and all that, and kind of the decisions of what goes in and what's not. For me personally, it should be movies that are, I mean, I know it's essential, but also, can you tell the history of movies with or without this movie? And this is a movie that I think, to me, from this year, where there's not personally that many that I would honestly say I want in the canon. I'm a little bit more strict when it comes to what's in the canon and what's not. And I think that this just embodies what a canon entry is, from it being groundbreaking and um in the horror aspect of it, but also with the like you said, the social commentary that's there, and then the way it's done, and then also just the homages to so many different classic movies that are already in the canon to begin with as well. And then just, great performances, everything going on to it. So yeah, no, there's no debate really here that I have.
I guess it's
Sailor.
my turn to talk about it. I think it's a perfect collision of style and, I mean, there's no other word to say it, substance. I think hey, gotcha. The director is on another level when it comes to visuals. I think you can see the thumbprint, the fingerprints on of many different directors in it. You could clearly see Cronenberg. You could see even Henenlotter because he loves his weird, gross out body horror stuff. I think the performances, Demi Moore is probably the best performance this year. I think she knocks it out of the park, and I think every couple of years she has to remind everyone that she's an amazing actress, and it's weird that she has to do this constantly. Remind everyone that she's as ballsy an actor as anyone has ever been, because this is a ballsy movie to sign up for. You're going to be naked. You're going to be the villain, but also hero. There's a lot of themes going on. I mean, a lot of people have obviously picked up on the fact that it's trying to find relevance in an industry that chews up the elderly and the washed up and chews them up and spits them out. But it's also, you could also look at it as an addiction allegory, how she's battling this addiction. Because I've seen this movie 3 times now. The first time I saw it, one of the main issues I had with it was that there was really no communication between Demi Moore and Quali. So it felt like they were just two separate characters. But I think after watching it and letting it live in your bones, you realize, oh no, it had to be that way. It had to be that they are two separate entities. Even though the movie repeatedly says we are, there is only one, or whatever the fuck they say. Um, it's
You've
I
seen it
can't
three
remember
times. How do
the
you not
exact.
know?
I don't remember. They said it a million times. Um, I think it works better that they are not on the same page at all. And every time Demi Moore wakes up, it's like, what the fuck happened? Or Margaret Qualley, every time she wakes up, she's like, what the fuck did Demi Moore do? And then Demi Moore wakes up and she's like, God damn it, that bitch. So it's a fun interplay. I do have an issue with the the last 15 minutes. I'm not going to get into spoilers.
Uh-oh.
I do think it should have ended a different way, but I do love that it went for it. I mean, you can't say that she went for it. But yeah, this is the number one. This is an incredible movie, and I really hope that the Oscars really look at it. I know Demi Moore is going to get nominated. I know certain things are going to get nominated, but I do feel like it might be too weird for them. But the style is it's undeniable. It's really probably one of the best directed movies of last year by far.
Yeah, you can't trust the Oscars when it comes to genre movies. I just can't do it.
No.
I do think
Yeah.
I'm a resident pole position guy. I don't really think The Substance is the one on the bubble in the best picture list. Really, I think it's things like A Real Pain, September 5, Sing Sing, Nickel Boys. Those seem to be kind of like the four fighting over the last two spots. I do think Substance is at this point kind of in that top 8. That's kind of safe. And Demi Moore really is kind of tracking for Best Actress. Even though I really thought Mikey Madison would take that, and she still could. She still could, but Demi Moore, I think she's got a real shot.
That would be sweet.
Yep.
That would be very sweet. Awesome. I love that everyone is on the same page except for me. I really like The Substance, but to me, it was not like a standout movie from this year. I don't know if I watched it at a weird time, but I did not vibe with the movie as much as I would have maybe hoped to. I sort of like, I feel like for me, it was like okay, I get this. I get what we're going for. I get the like artistic, and directorial vision that is within this movie, but it's not necessarily speaking to me on a deeper level. Maybe that's because I hate women. Maybe it's because I
Definitely.
think
That's the only way.
addiction is rad. Like, I don't know. So I this like I do think that it kind of has like a lot of the makings of like movies that we would put into the canon. Just for like me personally, I don't know that I clicked with it, which isn't to say that like that is the criteria, because I think that it is a movie that clicks with like most people who see it. And sort of Kane, like what you were saying, like, is this a movie that will be able to like leave out of the conversation about like the history of cinema in 5-10 years or whatever it may be? Like, there's a really good chance, especially if Demi Moore goes on to win the Oscar and like all the other awards, there's like a really good chance that this ends up being a movie that we like cannot talk about the last like 10-15 years of cinema without mentioning. So it seems like a great pick. It was nowhere near my list. But again, maybe I'm the fool there. There's a good chance that I am. I usually am. So
Well,
I
and I
think it
and I think
works
that it's going to
better
be one of
other way.
those. I think it's going to be one of those movies too, like you said, 5-10 years from now. But we're going to see some, spinoffs or some inspiration movies that take the inspirations from this. That the copycats that they're always, when there's these type of movies that kind of hit just pop culture and kind of the way it has and all that, and it just, I think this to me feels like one of those that we're going to see some pop up in different ways over the next couple
like
of years for sure.
there might be like a resurgence in like body horror as just like a genre that people are playing around with because of this movie. Like I don't know if there's really anything else in the last couple of years that like you can maybe say Titan, that French movie, but like I don't know if that really, like, even though it is in our canon, I don't know if that really hit the same way that like a movie like this might be hitting. Sailor, I feel like you were going to say something else.
Oh, I think it just works better if you go into it the second time knowing what it is and then just looking at it as a comedy. Because the first time you see it, you're like, "What the fuck is this?" And your mind is trying to piece together where it's going. And once you get rid of that and you watch it again, you're like, "Oh, this is deeply funny." Even though it is
Yeah,
also a horror movie, it is
I
also
got that.
like so ridiculous. Yeah.
I know how to watch movies. NBD.
Well,
And I would
the
just
first
say,
time you just feel like, I don't know what the fuck this is. I don't know what to make of it. And then you get to the end, you're like, okay, that was something. So if the themes and all of that doesn't work for you, I get it 100%, because I also, again, have issues with the ending. But
Yeah.
yeah, when you
It
go
wasn't really the
into it a
themes for
second,
me. It was more so just the like. I just feel like I got it, and maybe that's the point. I think the point of the movie is like it's supposed to be like abundantly obvious, like what it is that we're going for. Um, but for me, it was just something that I never like fully vibed and clicked with. Which again, like that's not to say anything about the movie. Like it could have just been that I was watching it like on the wrong day or whatever.
Oh yeah.
mm,
Well, I was just gonna say that to me, like now the substance is like maybe my favorite movie of the year in general. But my other two picks for this list that I'm not going to talk about, but they were like kind of like in my 20s on my list, which feels maybe
Mm.
weird for what should belong in the canon. But I feel like this movie and those two movies that I won't name, um, regardless of how I like personally feel, those are the three movies I felt like are kind of like a cinematic lightning bolt that just like regardless of how you respond to it, like you can see it and be like, yeah, that that's a unique, like memorable film that's always going to be around. Also, can we just mention for the sake of since we all except for Raph love this movie so much, it's how wonderful it is that you have all this grotesque stuff and then like probably the grossest thing in this movie is just Dennis Quaid eating shrimp.
So
Like
he's
that's
the
just like
best. He's I think it's what's crazy is 2 years in a row, like two of the biggest movies that are basically like about females and and women, and Barbie, and this is like there's the man who kind of just steal the movie for me because he absolutely that kind of like what Sailor was talking about earlier is like, oh, whether it's a comedy or not, and you don't know, is like the moment he walks into that bathroom the way he does at the very beginning, and we overhear him on the phone talking about Demi Moore's character, and it's like, yeah, this is a comedy. Like already, this he made me laugh so much, and he's the worst person in the world at the same time. So yeah, he stole the movie. Besides Margaret Qualley's fake boobs, I mean, they just absolutely stole the movie for me.
10 out of 10.
Good stuff. All right. That's I think you may have nailed it with the first pick, Jacob. Um and we will maybe come back to some of our backup movies on the back end. And at that point we can all discuss Madam Web and why it is the one true canon entry for 2024. But before we do that, let's see who is next up to nominate a movie. Oh, Sailor.
Oh, okay.
What you got?
I'm gonna give it a little bit of ramble, as you know, to get up into it.
You?
But a million years
Before you
ago.
start rambling, can I say
Okay.
something really sad? I've been having a lot of technical difficulties with our soundboard, and I spent so much time today, like literal hours, trying to get it fixed, and it's still not working. And that would have been a perfect moment for me
Mm.
to play Ramble On for you. I was like, I was gathering new sounds for us and everything, trying to get it set, and I just don't know. I don't know what happened. It's not working. So sorry, but now
I'm
you
I
can
know. I
deeply I'm
tried to
deeply disappointed
before
that
it
I don't get to
was.
hear that on my first episode.
Yeah. Everyone's
messed up.
disappointed at Giraffe. Okay. Um, ramble time. A million years ago, Trey Parker and Matt Stone taught a class on storytelling. You could find the video on YouTube. Their biggest takeaway was their but or therefore rule. When you have a set of story beats and you can put the words and then in between each one, you're fucked, is what Trey Parker said.
Hmm.
This happened, and then this happened, and this happened. That's not a story, that's a series of events. They said instead, put but or therefore. This happened, but this happened, therefore this happens. Then now you have character arcs, you have setups and payoffs. That's a story. There is no better movie this or last year rather that better exemplifies the there but or therefore rule than Hundreds of Beavers, which I think is a perfect comedy. For those of you who have not seen it, I think everyone has at this point. But if you haven't, it is a silent comedy set in the 1800s where a trapper is hunting down beavers to get 100 of the pelts to win the heart of a girl. Sounds simple enough. The gimmick, though, is that all of the beavers and wolves and rabbits you see in the movie are obviously people in costume. Now, if you saw a still from this movie, or you read the plot synopsis, or you watched the trailer, you would probably assume that, like most of the movies that have come out recently, that it is a premise in search of a plot, or rather, an Adult Swim short stretched to 90 minutes. This movie is a Chuck Jones cartoon stretched, not even stretched to 90 minutes. It's literally a live action Chuck Jones cartoon that's just 90 minutes. The amount of, if you went to the bathroom for 5 minutes, you would miss 10 gags. That's how densely plotted, not even plotted, densely packed with jokes. And that's not even hyperbole on my part. It is literally a joke a minute. But those jokes, with their setups and payoffs within 90 seconds, also then have setups and payoffs later. And then you get to the end where you're like, God damn, all of this movie is just one long joke that just keeps escalating. I think it is really a true testament on the part of the directors. In my world, if I was in the Academy, I'd be like, these motherfuckers need to be nominated for Best Director, because it took them like 3.5 years to make it. And then you watch the end result and you're like, yeah, I don't even understand how that all of the puzzle pieces would have to align for a joke you came up with in 2018 that you shot in 2020 would be funny. You know what I mean? Like, it's just all of these things, but they knew what they had, which was a lot of good jokes. So for me, I know the substance is what everyone is talking about, but Hundreds of Beavers is that surprise hit that really came out of nowhere and really blew everyone away, I believe. So that is my pick for the Canon pick.
Well, I feel like Jacob has to give us his thoughts first, because he has, for those who can't see, he has hundreds of beavers style beard right now.
Yeah, it's about as long as it's been. Yeah, well, I also wrote the review on our site for Hundreds of Beavers, and kind of brought some attention to the movie over here, because it's a movie that most people still have not seen. It's not it's completely like indie. It's streaming like everywhere for free. So if you're listening to this and Hundreds of Beavers sounds like your thing, you can find it. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's awesome. The visual effects, I mean, they're obviously rudimentary. Like, they're not they're not blockbuster type special effects, but they're insane. And when you think about this, I think the director was the guy who took all these pieces and sat there in Adobe After Effects and made all of this happen. Not a team of people, not a professional crew doing special, like just Adobe After Effects and a man with a vision. and and that vision includes a man in a man punching hundreds of people in beaver costumes, which is just as hilarious as it can be. And the last scene, the final like 15 minutes of this movie, without really spoiling, I don't think he really spoiled this movie per se, but like it takes place. There's part of it in the Beaver's Dam, and it's just crazy. Like, it's just it kind of like is radical that they had the budget that they had and the personnel that they had, and they're like, we're going to do this. We're going to pull this off. I'm trying to like even stage that and put that together is like a massive feat. And it's also, very like different. And I think at ScreenAge Wasteland, I mean, we like that kind of thing. It's very unique, and it's practically a silent film, and it's slapstick, and it's black and white, and it's a really good time. So I really have no argument against it being in the canon, other than, I mean, maybe, you know, it's so underseen compared to the substance. Like, as far as like discourse wise, maybe, like if you miss it, most people missed it, but the substance is kind of a little bit different, where everyone that's a big film fan is talking about the substance this year. So
Yeah, no, when I when I made a list or started looking at what I felt like should be in the canon, I had about three movies that I thought, okay, these should be in the canon no matter what. One was The Substance, of course, and then the second one was Hundreds of Beavers. And I think it's just, and what's crazy to me is it's pretty much everything I don't like in movies, that are not my cup of tea. Like, I'm not a big slapstick. I'm not a big um, old black and white movie fan or silent era and all that stuff. But the once we got to the one of the first scenes where it was about three or so rabbits beating the crap out of the main character, it hooked me, and I was just like, "This is what is going on?" Because I had heard, people talking about it, especially around the site and stuff. I was like, "Okay, I'll check it out." I said it was free. I was just going to throw it on and not really pay attention. And then by the time that happened, I was hooked all the way to the end, and it made me laugh. And it was just one of those. Yeah, it felt like it's crazy that people still can make something that feels so 2024, but also harken back to the 1920s and stuff like that, but still be able to connect at the same time the way it did. So yeah, no, it's a great pick.
Yeah, I have no argument against it. This movie is very, very, very dope, very funny. Um, Also, just like proof that you can do comedy in 2024, which we don't have to get into it, but like so much, like so many comedians and like comedic actors and comedic directors are like, oh, you can't make comedy anymore because like you can't offend people. But like like Hundreds of Beavers, everyone who watches it laughs out loud, and it's the most inoffensive thing ever. It's just like dudes in beaver costumes getting beaten up, and we're all like, yeah, that's hilarious. Uh, um, so like it's very funny. It's like extremely singular in just like what it's doing in terms of being like an experiment in filmmaking and something that we don't get enough. I think with time, like this movie will continue through word of mouth to grow, and like more people will come to it and realize how awesome it is. I had a friend who watched this movie in like February or March of 2024, and he messaged the group chat and he was like, guys, everyone needs to go see Hundreds of Beavers right now. He was like the first person I heard talking about it, and since then it's just been like more and more people. Like Jacob has put a bunch of people onto it. I'm sure Sailor and Kane, like in your personal lives, like you've told friends and family members to watch it, and like I think that it's going to be really cool to watch this movie over the next couple of years. Like we're saying, like grow sort of like organically just through like word of mouth and people being like, hey, if you haven't seen this movie, you should watch it. They also do like a ton of like fun stuff on like social media where they're like doing like fun little like marketing gimmicks and stuff. So I feel like once this movie like continues to grow and finds an audience, there will be no reason why it shouldn't be in the canon, because it will be something that like everyone is like, yeah, that was like a really, really, really cool movie and unlike anything that we're seeing in 2024. And it's like really refreshing to have stuff like that. So great pick, Sailor.
Yep, yep.
did y'all all fully catch the dogs playing poker gag?
Mm-hmm.
Because I had to go back and I caught the general gag, but then like after I got done watching the movie, I was like, and I went back and watched it. I was like, did they do what I think they did? And I looked. If you pay attention to like the card games, and it
Yeah.
actually there's more gag there than I realized at first on first watch. It's pretty funny.
More gag than meets the eye.
It's amazing how many jokes are in this movie. And the
Yeah.
punchline to almost all of them are, and then the beavers beat the shit out of them. And yet it works. I don't know how. And yet it works.
It always works. I forgot who I was talking to about it, but they were like, they made the comparison that it's kind of like Monty Python and the Holy Grail. And like, we haven't really seen anything like it since then, where it's literally just a nonstop onslaught of gags and bits. And it works. Like, we don't need like much more around it. Just everything is there for the purpose of gags and bits. And that is such an enjoyable movie watching experience when done correctly. And this movie definitely does. So big kudos to Hundreds of Beavers. All right. Should we find out who is next to nominate?
Spin that wheel, Ref.
Spin that shit. Let's go. Who's it going to be? Who's it going to be? Oh, holy crap. It's right on the line. And it's me. It's Raph. Oh, okay. That was a close one. I also could have been lying to you guys this whole time. No one else has eyes
I didn't
on
want
the
to say
wheel.
anything earlier being the new guy, but that's...
I appreciate you guys trusting me with the integrity of the wheel. But I feel like
if you take Bad Boys Ride or Die, I'm going to be really mad.
really mad because you want to nominate it, or really mad because you would just be like offended that that's the movie that I pick.
Both.
Raph, before you pick your thing, I just want to say it drives me fucking bananas that Bad Boys for Life is the third one and not the fourth one. It drives me up the wall.
It's insane. It's no, it's a very fair thing. It's been said millions of times, but like, it can't be said enough. It's one of the biggest mistakes in movie making history, of just like, the name was right there and they flubbed it.
They had to think they were done, right? Like, they were like, we're never making it. Like, we're never doing this again.
That must have been it. But
apparently
still,
that
like,
third one made fucking money, I guess, and the fourth one did too. People are riding hard for these assholes, I guess. News to me. I thought,
is Now You See Me 3, are they calling that Now You 3 Me? Because that would be a similar misstep if they don't name it that.
That takes on a whole new meaning too, of a type of movie, different type of magic and hiding tricks.
Okay, all right.
I'm not even joking. I would see it in theaters if they called it Now You 3 Me.
Yeah,
just to ask for the ticket. Just to ask for the ticket of like,
one for Now You 3 Me.
Just one.
Yeah. I'll give you my money, but you're not getting my eyeballs.
You'd have to see it with two friends so you can say 3 for Now You 3 Me.
3 for Now You 3 Me.
It also bugs me that, I mean, obviously he can't now, but that they never use the title Old Habits Die Hard for a Die Hard sequel. That also annoys the shit out of me.
Yeah. That was a big miss. I think
Live
I've
Free,
mentioned
Die
it on the show
Hard. What the fuck are you talking about? Get it out of here.
Live Free or Die. That's what is that? New Hampshire? Their state motto.
Yeah, but it doesn't take place. None of it works. A Good Day to Die Hard. No, man. Old Habits Die Hard. It was right there. God damn.
It was right there.
Driving me.
I'm going to quickly go back to Now You See Me, because I think I've mentioned it on this show, but there was a period of time where whenever I was on a plane and Now You See Me was available to watch on said plane, I would watch it. And I realized that I was doing this bit for an audience of one because I wasn't like sharing it anywhere. So after like the fifth time, I realized like, I'm just torturing myself. I'm just like literally torturing myself watching Now You See Me over and over and over again on every flight for no real reason. So hopefully this year, if I see Now You See Me on a plane, I will document it so that the joke can like live somewhere beyond just like in my own brain. But I wanted to tell you guys that, so I have some accountability for my Now You See Me bit, which you now all know. Okay,
Thank you, Ryan.
My 2024 nomination. I'm going to go with a super basic answer. And to me, it feels like a super obvious answer. Maybe not as obvious as Hundreds of Beavers or The Substance, but this movie made a gazillion dollars. It very well could sweep many awards across the Oscars and like other, award shows or whatever. I also think that we're going to see like a fundamental shift in movie making and like in particular blockbuster filmmaking as we like continue to try to figure out what to do post like Marvel Endgame, like MCU, all that stuff. Like I think we're still trying to figure out like what we want to do after that. And the template seems like it's right there with Dune 2. Like that movie was massive. It was amazing. It's like super accessible, but also a really well-made piece of art and is like working on several different levels. It had a cool popcorn bucket that people were having sex with. So like, I don't know if that's not canon
Sailor.
worthy. I don't know. I don't know what is.
I feel seen.
That poor bucket.
Let me
Sailor's
tell you,
poor bucket.
2024, great year to fuck buckets. 2024.
Yeah, right. Like this is going to be known as the year of popcorn buckets that you could have sex with, and the pinnacle of that was the Dune 2 sandworm bucket.
Are we
Like,
going to put that into the canon? Put the popcorn bucket in the canon?
we
Have
probably
a
should.
special post what it means to us.
Look,
right up to
Sailor can tell us as someone who has tried to have sex with all of the specialty popcorn buckets, including the
then
Paw
some.
Patrol one, which was like really weird that Sailor told us that he did that. He can.
That Nosferatu one is the size of a coffin, and I've been sleeping in it ever since.
that Knuckles Sonic the Hedgehog one really made Sailor feel good.
You put me on a list though, but it was worth it.
Okay, popcorn buckets aside, what do we think about Dune 2 as a nomination for 2024?
Oh God! I said I had 3 movies that I thought would be that should be in, and y'all took all 3, you jerks.
No,
Those were my
should have been
3.
last.
Yeah.
No, that's fine. That's great. I think it's again it's probably my 1B favorite movie of the year. I think it's like you said, it hits everything. It's just, to me, this is one of the best movies of the year, one of the best movies of the decade, truthfully, and it just is awesome. I love the Dune books. So to be able to see Villeneuve be able to do what he did in 2 movies and have this one just absolutely crush it, is just it blew me away. And I loved seeing it on the screen, and it's one of those that I'll revisit multiple times. Just every I mean I could sit here and talk about that movie for a long time, so I definitely am in agreement of that one possibly making the canon.
Well, I'm really interested to see what Kane pulls out next now that all 3 of his picks were taken. But Dune 2, I said I had 3. Dune 2 is another one of the 3. And Hundreds of Beavers was not in the 3. So, but yeah, Dune 2, I mean, it's so for me on my list personally, it's kind of like somewhere in the 20s this year. I need to watch it again. And I question, because like the direction and like the look of this film is pretty much beyond almost anything else that's been released, this year. Like the direction from Denis Villeneuve is like top level craft. It's epic. It's grand in scale. Nobody does movies like Villeneuve does, and it's crazy. It's crazy that he's probably not going to get an Oscar nomination for this movie. It's insane. And Coralie Farge might also get left out of the 5 for
Are they going to
freaking
put in James Mangold?
Jacques Audiard for Emilio Perez.
Oh gosh.
Mangold could make it. It's crazy.
Mangold can't keep getting away with this.
Yeah. So, but
We
yeah,
can't allow it.
Villeneuve was right there. I mean, this movie, I don't understand how you look at this movie and don't think Denis Villeneuve is one of the top 5 directors this year. I mean, this is just so beyond. For me personally, the movie it's more of a Dune property thing. It no pun, well, pun intended. Sure, it can be a little dry for me, and it's so dense. You know, there's so much. So from a certain perspective, the performances are great, but there's a certain like monotone. You know, the emotions kind of reeled in, and so in that level, it doesn't quite excite me as much. But then, man, every time like Villeneuve gets to one of the action scenes in this movie, you're like, I don't ever want to watch another action scene again. Like every time he gets into the action, it's incredible, and he does great with characters too. But it's just the Dune property, I think, that doesn't necessarily sit with me. But it's another one that's just like pure cinematic lightning. The other part of this where I could kind of say the one weird thing is Dune Part Two being in the canon without Dune Part One. It's one of those things like, is that like a package deal? It's just kind of a weird. Do they both have to be in the canon? It feels weird to have
Dune Part
one without
1
the other.
might be in the
No, they
canon.
don't.
Is it in the canon already?
It's not. It hasn't been written about, but I think it has been voted in by. Maybe I'm not supposed to reveal that information to the general public. That might
Check with
just
Duke
be,
and cut it if you need to.
yeah, something for us within the wasteland.
Well, from my point of view, I don't think the first one should be in at all. I think it's fine. I think it's competently made. This is the movie everyone went crazy about when they were talking about Dune, and I was just sitting there going, "Yeah, all right, whatever." But this one, I'm like, the scene, the section with Austin Butler in that monochromatic black and white world is the
Yep.
best directed thing of the year by far.
Yep.
Like, it's insane. And that's a part of the movie. Every section of this movie is the best movie of the year. It it is the best movie going experience of the year by far to me. I mean, the best theatrical experience. You need to see this on IMAX, the biggest screen possible. And, if you partake in edibles, I'm just going to say it's going to take you there. It's going to take it to another level. But I honestly think it's filmmaking on another level. Like you said, Denis Villeneuve really is. I mean, I'm going to be sad when Spielberg dies and Scorsese and all the old school cats, but I think we're in good hands with cats like Denis because every element of this movie is on the best. You know what I mean? Like, it's on another level. It really is. It's truly remarkable. The scene where they're
Besides
riding
the
the damn sandworms, every scene with Javier Bardem, who is locked in this movie. Zendaya gives a good performance, even though, I know people like to shit on her. I do think she's a really good actress. I mean, she was just kind of there in the first movie, looking like she was in a perfume commercial, just standing there looking at shit, but she gives a fully formed performance. Oh, little Timmy Tim is great. I'm missing Jason Momoa, but that's a minor quibble. But I think it really is a landmark of cinema. The only problem was it came out so early that the heat has died off, and I think Academy voters really do suffer from recency bias. I think they've just forgotten about it, to be honest with you, because Austin
And
Butler's not in the
it's a genre sci-fi. They don't usually jive with that as well.
That's the good thing about the canon, though. We don't forget. We don't write off movies because of when they're released or whatever genre they might fall into. A few quick things on what Sailor said. One, I feel like Denis is in like a class of his own in terms of like his contemporaries. Obviously, you have like Spielberg and Scorsese, who are like legends, and like Lee, like Spike Lee, and to a lesser extent, like Fincher and like Lynch, who we just lost, but like you have like all those like sort of like old heads. But in terms of just like people, like contemporary filmmakers who are sort of like in their like prime era right now, like I feel like he's kind of broken away in terms of like a class of his own. Like he's like entering that like PTA Tarantino territory, that like not a lot of directors are in. You look at him versus someone like Mangold, and you're just like they're playing two different sports. It's like Pee Wee football versus like Lamar Jackson or something. I'll shit on James Mangold until the end of time.
We'll have to explain who Lamar Jackson is to Sailor.
Please. Is he a bucket I can fuck?
You know what?
If
In a
he's
weird
not,
way, he is a bucket, and you probably could have sex with him. So, yeah. Cool. Should we get to Kane's pick, even though we picked?
How much time do I have to pick my? No, I know exactly which one I'm picking, and y'all did this to yourselves.
To spin the wheel?
No, well, spin it just so that I can have the.
Okay, we're spinning it, and it is. It landed on Kane.
Let's go. All right,
Sailor again. Ooh.
Sailor for the second time.
No one has time for that.
No, since y'all took my three, and I kind of figured like Dune 2 was one that I thought even if that didn't get picked, that's one of those that's almost a given for the canon to me. So I thought about just kind of skipping that one anyways to pick a different one. I don't think there was three from this year. I think it was a really good year, but I don't think it was just the greatest year this year as far as it came to essential films. But the one I'm going to talk about, because my muscle mommy is essential, is Love Lies Bleeding. Absolutely one of my top five films of the year. I wrote about it in our Kane's 5 favorite films of the year, and this is starring Kristen Stewart, and like I said, muscle mommy Katie O'Brien, who made me an absolute fan of hers and want to see what she does next. It is one of the sexiest films of the year, which we don't get a lot of in movies. I think this year felt like kind of a return to some sexiness with that. Strange Darling, Substance, and list can go on, but Rose Glass. I remember watching Saint Maud with her, and she absolutely she killed that movie, and was like, okay, that's a person that I need to keep an eye on for what she does next. And then next thing you know, she's working with one of my absolute favorite actresses of all time, and Kristen Stewart here. And then it's like, man, you got Dave Franco in a freaking mullet, and then the great Ed Harris doing his thing, who's just absolutely menacing right there. But no, absolutely just a fun ride, very surreal, very Bound-esque, and just absolutely one of my favorites of the year that I want to talk about. And so I guess that I'll leave that up to y'all. Of what do y'all think of Love Lies Bleeding making it into the canon?
I don't think it's canon worthy, but I really, really, really dug that movie. Yeah, Ed Harris in a crazy wig, Dave Franco doing a role that like was better suited for his brother, but like pulling it off. And then the two leads they're like Kristen Stewart's awesome, and Katie O'Brien is like, she's just like perfect in this world, and will like obviously go on to star in like really, really cool things. Really cool movie. I just don't know that it's canon worthy, but like a good shout.
I'm pretty much with Raph, like on like Love Lies Bleeding. I mean, I like A24, and so I was excited about it, but it still felt like a nice surprise. like watching it. It was like, man, this thing is crazy. It's fun. Like it's really, it kind of lost me a little bit at times with some of the surrealism. Like I was just kind of like, I'm I like it, but I don't know exactly what's going on. But I mean, it's a really fun, like well crafted movie. The scene where she's on stage, some of that stuff that was happening is insane. And I was like, man, this is way different than I expected. But yeah, I personally like I wouldn't quite as much put it in the canon. Um, I don't know, it just doesn't quite come off as maybe big enough compared to the other ones that we talked about. I don't know, but I did enjoy it a lot.
I feel like a lot of canon movies are like if someone's like, oh, I've never seen this. You're like, what? You've never seen The Godfather? You've never seen 2001? Like, you gotta watch that.
Right.
Where Love Lies Bleeding is a movie that like I'm only recommending to a certain kind of friend, like someone who I know is like down for like they're like maybe ready for some like not advanced stuff, but like they're ready for something uh a little bit more out there than Dune 2. Like Dune 2 was just like such an easy like starter movie. Like, oh, okay, like everyone can watch Dune 2, everyone can enjoy it. I'm not sure that everyone can or is like ready to enjoy Love Lies Bleeding. But those of us
Right.
who are ready for it are like we're in, you know?
More of a mature type of film cinephile, because it's got a lot of the thriller, the thriller aspect and the drama and the crime and all this kind of in there, but it's just on a just a elevated kind of mature level with the sexiness and the, like you said, the surrealism.
Isn't it an essential movie like The Godfather? No. Is it a perfect pastiche of homages? Absolutely. I see, like you said, Bound. I see Coen Brothers. I see so many of the 90s thrillers that we don't get anymore, especially the sexiness that I know Kane was talking about. We haven't seen a sexy movie like this in a long fucking time. And on top of that, the weirdness. And I think that weirdness, and we're talking around it because I really don't want to ruin. Because
Right.
if you go into it, you're going to expect a to B revenge type thriller or like a one of those type of movies, and it does get really weird at the end. And I think that that weirdness is the key because I think that weirdness is going to separate your average moviegoers from the cinephiles who are like, thank God. Because we're always looking for someone to, we're looking for those big swings. And I think, like, Dune 2 isn't a big swing at all to me. It's just a really competently made movie. There's no weirdness to it, really. It's you go into it expecting exactly what you were going to get, and you get that. You don't know what you're going to get in Love Lies Bleeding, and you might get turned off by the ending. And I think that's what I love about it is that it can go the other way, where you can immediately go, "Oh, I liked it up until this," and that to me is, I think we need to start celebrating those swings. No, it's not essential, but it's fucking crazy, and I love crazy. We need more crazy. I would rather
Yes.
see this in the canon than fucking Conclave, which guarantee you that's going to get Oscar noms and shit. And I guarantee you in 5 years, no one's going to be talking about Conclave, and more people will be talking about this.
Right.
I think.
More old white actors killing it being old white people. Just like that's awesome.
Plus, we need more
But
Ed
that's
Harris looking like a crypt keeper eating bugs. That's all I'm saying.
yeah. The right, there are some movies, there are obviously like a ton of movies in the canon that like got a bunch of awards and like were recognized at the time for being amazing movies, but also a lot of them are movies that like weren't reclaimed until years later when people were like, "Oh, this movie from 10 years ago is like absolutely insane and like everyone needs to watch this." And it then just like becomes part of the lexicon, so to speak. So, um again, like that's why it's like, we're not even a month into 2025, so it's like impossible to know what movies from 2024 will end up standing the test of time. I think if we did this a year ago, I think it would have been pretty obvious that like Barbie, Oppenheimer, and for me, Killers of the Flower Moon are like no brainers. Like those are movies that like we're not going to be able to tell the history of cinema without those movies. But I think for 2024, it's like a little harder. So that's what makes this kind of fun. Sweet. I feel like we have like a couple of minutes so we can maybe go through some of our backups and not like necessarily talk about them at length, but just like sort of like mention what they were. I think I want to go reverse order. So I think we got all of Kane's, but Kane, do you have any other movies that you were considering as backups that you would maybe nominate?
Yeah, the I had a few Strange Darling, the Bike Riders, Nosferatu were a few that I had on kind of my long list.
Nice. So for me, I was kind of hoping that you were going to mention Bike Riders because that was like my sleeper pick. I think that movie has like a really good chance in 5 to 10 years to be a movie that like really defines 2024 in a weird way, like super relevant to just like the American psyche at this time, I think, in ways that like aren't super apparent right now but can become apparent sort of just like based on how the next 5 years of like American society goes. So I think that could be a movie that like we end up coming back to, even though I don't think it's like that great. And then the other two that I had that are just sort of like could go either way, Challengers and The Brutalists. Like maybe they could be movies that we totally forget about. They could be movies that end up proving to be like really long lasting. But those are
Now,
mine.
Challengers will be forgotten about.
I know you weren't a fan of Challengers. I was hoping we would get our Challengers debate and our Bike Riders discussion in during this episode, but we'll have to save it for another
I'm
time.
all for discussing the Bike Riders. There we Dahlgren on the website, myself, we actually did a kind of a neat new kind of thing we're hoping to kind of get going, as we called it, cinema conversations, where we just kind of, it was almost like a podcast in written form of just kind of asking each other questions and kind of going back and forth and about discussing the Bike Riders. So if y'all want to, anybody out there want to check that out, because I love that movie. I could sit and talk about that movie for a couple hours.
I gotta check that out. That sounds dope. Sailor, did you have any other backups that you would have maybe thrown into the mix?
I do. Before I get into them, and it's gonna be short. I just consider Nickel Boys, Queer, and Brutalist to be 2025 movies because they just didn't come out for me in 2024. That's the reason why I just didn't pick them for
Come to
this.
New
So I
York,
should.
bro.
So my five, and I'm gonna go through them. Rebel Ridge, I think was really good. Challengers, Mars Express, which was an animated movie, not a lot of people saw, but I will not stop beating the drum for it. Sing Sing, and then Nosferatu. Those would be my five.
Yeah, I feel like it's hard to make an argument for a movie that not a lot of people saw. So sorry to your
I mean,
anime.
it's not my fault y'all can't catch up to it, but Hundreds of Beavers is that movie too to me, where it'll get legs, and so will
Yeah.
Love Lies Bleeding.
Nosferatu seems like it could have been like right on the cusp. It'll be interesting to see how that movie like ages. We'll say. Jacob, what were your other backups?
My other backup, that I said I picked three. My other backup was Nosferatu. Another one that's kind of down my list a little bit personally because I couldn't quite like. There's a lot of themes in Nosferatu, and I wasn't sure how they all really came together for me. After a first viewing, I'm feeling a little bit weird about it, but it's one of those where Robert Eggers is just like completely in his rhythm, and like the direction is insane, and um like the whole opening sequence that has the captions that look like silent film, word, I mean, like the whole the gothic look, the shadows, all of that is just like immaculate, and it's just a work of art. But I just don't, from the story perspective and some of the themes. Like for me personally, I'm not sure I completely like got it. Not like The Witch. Like Egger's The Witch definitely should
Mhm.
be in the canon to me, but like, um, but yeah, I mean, out of this year, Nosferatu just kind of jumps off of the screen, even if I didn't really like love it as much as some other movies that are higher on my list, but they just aren't, canon. They aren't really canon movies. Like
Yeah.
I like Rebel Ridge is great, and like I liked My Old Ass really a lot, and then there's a great little film Ghostlight. I need to review that for the site, honestly, but it's a lot of fun, but it's not really canon to me.
Yeah. No, it's totally. I feel like there were a lot of movies like that for me. And Nosferatu, like I can't tell if it's just like I I personally love this movie and I'm like fully in the bag for it, or if it's something that will, because like The Witch is like seems like an obvious canon entry, but then like I love The Lighthouse more than I love The Witch, but I don't necessarily think that The Lighthouse is like a canon movie. Like that's just like a Raft movie, and I can't tell where Nosferatu falls. Um,
No, I'm there. I'm there with you. Like Nosferatu, like I said, Dune was kind of my 1B. Well, Nosferatu is my 1A. It's my favorite movie of the year. I absolutely love Nosferatu, but I think there is a distinction of what's canon worthy and what's not. And so, just because it's my favorite movie, and I do think it's one of the best, one of the most well made, one of the most well acted of the year, I don't really consider it canon worthy. And Robert Eggers, yeah, I think everything he does is might not be my favorite, but I think he's operating on a different. He's like that the horror version of like uh, Denis Villeneuve, where he's just operating on a different level each movie in and out. And I'm kind of the opposite. Like I love The Witch, but for some reason it doesn't click with me. But I'm kind of like you, Ralph, where The Lighthouse is my favorite, or was. I think Nosferatu is kind of taken over, but to me, Lighthouse is right there as well. With Northman probably being my least favorite, which is still great. Like I
mhm.
still like that movie. But yeah,
Yeah, good stuff all around. We'll say, for the sake of this episode, the 5 movies that we're recommending for this year for the canon or for the year of 2024. It's going to be The Substance, Hundreds of Beavers, Dune Part 2, Love Lies Bleeding, and we'll give the 5th spot to Nosferatu. Um, Kane, Jacob, and Sailor, thank you guys again for joining. This has been a very fun little bonus episode of the canon before we get back into the full swing of things. Thanks for coming on.
thanks for having me.
Glad to be here.
It was a pleasure.
Always a pleasure. We will hopefully and most likely see all 3 of these gentlemen, maybe not together, on episodes coming up in season 5. If you want to know what movies we're going to be talking about in season 5, boy, are you lucky. In a week or so, we'll be releasing the episode lineup for season 5. Bob and Ramona will be joining me to unveil those movies that we're going to be talking about in season 5. And shortly after that, we will jump back into the canon proper. We can't wait. In the meantime, there's a ton of great stuff on the website. It's January, so we're doing our best of 2024 year in review. All of our favorite movies of the year are up, or top movies, depending on who wrote it. Sailor has like 1,001 2024 movies to see before you die. I don't even think there were 1,000 movies that came out last year, but that's Sailor. I think Kane is also heading up our ScreenAge Wasteland Awards for this year. Is that right?
Yeah, actually, Sailor and I kind of collaborated on that. I just kind of took the ball of like putting everything out there, but that is actually out there to vote on. It's basically like our Saw Awards, just for horror movies. This is our first annual to do that. So it's still, I think the voting's open till, I think it's like the 29th, and we're going to announce the winners on the 31st.
Amazing. Yeah, so go vote there if you haven't already. Go check out everyone's top movies of 2024. Ton of great stuff coming on the website this year, including the return, season 5 of the Canon. Stay tuned. We'll talk to you soon. And in the meantime, we will catch all of you lovely folks in the wasteland.